And the Conservation Constitutional Amendment has a huge coalition behind it. Many, many years people have said they wanted it to pass, and it's still not passing. Why?
Well, the truth was revealed this year. The House passed it. The House also went so far, and there's a Republican-controlled House, to say they'll even entertain putting a tax increase to the voters to decide. They wouldn't pass it themselves, but to the voters to decide. And finally, at the very end of the session, Senator Dean Johnson, on behalf of the Democrats, just was very candid to me and ultimately publicly, and just said, we don't want it on the ballot because it'll bring out too many Republicans who are hunters and anglers and people who are outdoor types, and it'll distort the vote and hurt their chances in the legislature this fall. So
why is it a Republican issue?
Well, I don't know that. I don't think it is. I think it's a bipartisan issue, but in the minds of Senator Johnson, I think he personally supported it, but I think he was speaking on behalf of the tacticians within the Democratic Party who said they feared, I think it's an irrational fear, that it was going to turn out more Republicans. I think it would have turned out an equal number of Democrats. So I'm hopeful that in 2008, with a presidential race, those kinds of concerns won't be in everybody's minds, or at least the Democrats' minds, because the turnout will be so large, everybody shows up in a presidential race.
Is there a way it could be recrafted so that the left perceives that they're getting more out of it, that the environmentalists get as much as the hunters and fishers? Do you think it's balanced enough that way? Well,
they tried to do that, and this year, of course, you're familiar with the fact that they added public radio, the arts, various other things in an effort to try to attract, and there again, this is all from the perspective of the Democrats, some of quote-unquote their voters, to come out and support it so it wouldn't just benefit Republicans. Now, all of that is their theory, but you ask why it didn't get on the ballot, and that's a very blunt and candid revelation by the Democratic leader.
Could you handle all of those ride-ons, or do you want it stripped back down?
Again, I have learned a lot as governor. And one thing I've learned is we cannot let the perfect get in the way of the good. We have to be able to find some common ground and focus on those things that we can agree on, set aside those things that we can't, and so I can live with the add-ons if that's what it takes to get it on the ballot.
And we have governors who say they support it, we have lawmakers who say they support it, but for some reason it never passes.
Well, this is the issue on the environment in general. Everybody supports clean water. Everybody supports clean air. Everybody supports additional habitat. The issue is how you pay for it, and that's where the fight begins. On the 316th Amendment, there's been, you get into this coalition building as to who else will participate. At one point, it was a 3/8 Amendment being floated in the state Senate. I think the role of the governor is to try to work together with groups to get these bills passed. It does no good to walk out at the end of the session saying, we accomplished nothing, or I'm a success, I made sure that everybody else didn't get what they wanted. I don't think that's the way government ought to operate, and that's unfortunately kind of the mode we've been in for more than 4 years. We've been doing this for quite a while here, and we've got to change our course. On the 3/16, I do believe it should be additional money, not taken out of the existing budget.
So raise the sales tax.
And well, if that's what the legislature is going to pass, I would support it. I would prefer it coming out of the old budget, the existing budget, but then the reality is, as you do that and as you do the Invest Amendment, what we're ending up with is a situation where the people are voting for environmental issues or transportation issues because our legislature and governor don't have enough guts to actually address the issue. These things don't have to be done by the Constitution. They should be done as part of the normal legislative process.
Is that your stance pretty much on all these constitutional amendments? We have the MVEST dedication, we have the constitutional 3/16. Would you prefer all that just to be done by the governor and legislature and not turn it all over to the voters?
It would be a better role for the state, for the legislature and the governor to do it. Unfortunately, particularly when you get to the 3/16 issue, the environment, what we spend on environment and natural resources in this state is minuscule. It's less than 1% of the budget, and it's been eroding steadily now for, I believe, 20 years. And so there is no constituency. While everybody likes the environment, everybody claims they support it. The fact is, when you get down to these budget committees and you got everybody talking about cuts, these are where the cuts occur, and there's certainly no growth. So the response to the groups, and I sympathize with this, is to say, listen, we're not getting the long-term impact of destroying our natural resources not being seen in the political process today, so we have to go to the Constitution to get an amendment passed. I don't fault that.
Another huge coalition was the Conservation Amendment, the fractions bill, the numbers change, the percentage change, and again, this is dedicating, through the Constitution, permanently dedicating a revenue flow for conservation. What's your stance on that?
Well, the same thing. I mean, I don't think the Constitution is the place to do this. And I would say to those folks, you know, and I know they're still going to campaign for this constitutional thing, you know, even if they got it back on the ballot and da-da-da-da, we're talking 2 or 3 years from now before this money is going to be available. Our argument is the money could be available next year. Why wait? Let's get it done. We could dedicate, again, the governor and the legislature could have done this at any time in the last 4 years, 8 years, 10 years, 20 years. The fact that they didn't reflects, I think, their choices about priorities. Our choice is clear. We can create these 2 dedicated funds, one for the Clean Water Legacy Act and one for habitat and natural resources, tomorrow. And we're going to propose that because it's the way you get this thing going. I don't think we can wait any longer. To wait for the politicians to figure this thing out means, well, what we have today. We're losing.
Can you do that with existing funds, or do you think the sales tax needs to go up if you're going to dedicate portions of it?
I don't think it needs to go up, and you know it because I've talked about this so much. And I say this to every group, whether I'm talking to educators about education or talking to the transportation people about transportation, or in this case, I'm talking to the environmentalists and the outdoorsmen. The answer is health care. I mean, this is the thing that everybody needs to understand. The reason there's no money for the environment is not because there isn't enough money in Minnesota. It's because health care's taken all the money. And until we all get our minds around fixing the healthcare system in this state, we will never have enough money to do the things we wanted. Never. And I want to say that again, never. It is the biggest threat to the future of our state that's out there. And so what we've been doing is challenging every group, regardless of their particular interest, to recognize our common interest in fixing health care, because it literally is going to eat this state. It is eating this state alive. And the consequences are we find ourselves unable to fund these important things in the environment because we just haven't been willing to take the heat, actually, to fix what's wrong with health care.
Okay, just have a couple of final closing questions here.